Hold on to your hamburgers and brace yourselves for a wild ride, because the American food scene is about to get a serious shakeup. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the man who once battled for clean water and fought against big polluters, is now setting his sights on a new target: your dinner plate. As the head honcho of the Department of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. is on a mission to transform what we eat, and he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers along the way. Forget about political battles for a second and imagine this. You're strolling through the grocery store, grabbing your usual suspects off the shelves, that colorful cereal your kids love, the bright red sports drink that fuels your workouts, or maybe even those tempting neon-colored candies that satisfy your sweet tooth. But what if those vibrant hues weren't just innocent colors but rather, as RFK Jr. claims, petroleum-based poisons lurking in our food supply? It might sound like something out of a sci-fi thriller, but RFK Jr. is on a crusade to expose what he believes are hidden dangers in our food, particularly those eye-catching artificial dyes that make our food so visually appealing. He's not just whispering about it in hushed tones either. He's using his platform as Health and Human Services Secretary to send shockwaves through the food industry and spark a national conversation about what we're really putting into our bodies. Is RFK Jr. a fearless hero fighting for our right to a healthier life, or is he a troublemaker stirring up unnecessary panic? Is he tackling a genuine public health crisis, or is this just another example of government overreach? Buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the heart of this food fight and explore the arguments on both sides of the aisle. Let's face it, we live in a world obsessed with appearances, and food is no exception. We're drawn to vibrant colors, tantalizing aromas, and perfectly packaged products that promise convenience and flavor. But what if those visually appealing foods are hiding a dark secret? What if the very colors that make our food so enticing are actually harming our health? That's the question RFK Jr. is raising as he takes aim at artificial food dyes, those chemical concoctions that transform otherwise bland-looking food into a rainbow of marketable delights. These synthetic dyes, with their cryptic names like Red No. 40, Yellow No. 5, and Blue No. 1, have become ubiquitous in our food supply, finding their way into everything from breakfast cereals and candies to sports drinks and even some yogurts. While these dyes might add a pop of color to our food, RFK Jr. argues that they come with a hidden cost: our health. He points to growing concerns about the potential link between artificial food dyes and a range of health issues, particularly in children. Studies have suggested a possible connection between these dyes and hyperactivity, behavioral problems, and even learning difficulties in some children. The debate over the safety of artificial food dyes is nothing new. It's been a topic of discussion and controversy for years, with passionate voices on both sides of the issue. But RFK Jr.'s prominent position and his unwavering determination to tackle this issue head-on have thrust this debate into the spotlight, forcing consumers, food manufacturers, and policymakers to confront uncomfortable questions about what we're really eating. It was a day like any other in Washington, D.C., filled with the usual political maneuvering and press conferences. But on this particular day in April 2025, the air crackled with anticipation as RFK Jr., with his trademark charisma and air of quiet authority, stepped up to the podium. The assembled journalists, cameras flashing, knew something big was coming. They weren't wrong. In a move that sent shockwaves through the food industry and beyond, RFK Jr. announced his intention to phase out 8 artificial food dyes by the end of 2026. These weren't obscure chemicals hidden in the fine print of ingredient lists. These were the very dyes responsible for the vibrant colors of countless supermarket staples: Red No. 40, Yellow No. 5, Blue No. 1. The list went on, each name striking a chord of familiarity in the minds of anyone who'd ever eaten a brightly colored cereal or candy. The announcement wasn't just about the what, but the why. RFK Jr., in his characteristically blunt style, didn't mince words. He called the targeted dyes petroleum-based poisons, drawing a direct link between these common additives and potential health risks, particularly for children. The words hung in the air, instantly grabbing headlines and sparking heated debates across kitchens, newsrooms, and boardrooms alike. This wasn't just a suggestion, a gentle nudge toward healthier choices. This was RFK Jr., a Kennedy with a legacy of fighting for the little guy, putting big food on notice. He had the full weight of the FDA, led by his appointed commissioner, the renowned surgeon Dr. Marty Makary, behind him. The message was clear. Change was coming, whether the food industry liked it or not. To grasp the magnitude of RFK Jr.'s announcement, one had to look beyond the technical names and understand just how deeply embedded these artificial dyes were in the American food landscape. Red number 40, that ubiquitous hue, wasn't confined to cherry-flavored sodas and fruit punch. It lurked in salad dressings, yogurt, and even some brands of cheddar cheese, its presence often masked by the expectation of natural coloring. Yellow number 5, another target of the ban, was equally pervasive. It gave that sunny glow to macaroni and cheese, brightened up processed cheese slices, and even found its way into some brands of pickles. These dyes weren't just about making food look more appealing. They were about creating a consistent, predictable visual experience for consumers regardless of the natural variations in ingredients. Blue number 1, while less common than its red and yellow counterparts, still played a role in the artificial rainbow of the American food supply. It lent its hue to candies, frostings, and even some brands of bottled water, promising a visual appeal that belied the chemical reality of its origin. These were just 3 examples in a long list of dyes that had for decades become synonymous with the American way of eating. RFK Jr.'s announcement wasn't just about tweaking food labels, it was about challenging a deeply ingrained system, one where convenience and visual appeal often trumped concerns about potential long-term health consequences. Section 3, the science behind the scare. RFK Jr.'s bold move wasn't based on a whim or a sudden aversion to brightly colored food. He cited a growing body of scientific research that suggested a link between these artificial dyes and a range of adverse health effects, particularly in children. Studies, some dating back decades, hinted at a connection between these dyes and behavioral problems, hyperactivity, and even learning difficulties. One particularly compelling piece of evidence came from a 2021 study conducted in California. This large-scale study found that children exposed to higher levels of artificial food dyes were more likely to exhibit attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD symptoms. While the study didn't definitively prove causation, it added significant weight to the concerns that RFK Jr. and other advocates had been raising for years. The European Union, often seen as a leader in food safety regulations, had already taken steps to address the potential risks of artificial food dyes. Many of the dyes targeted by RFK Jr.'s ban carried warning labels in Europe, alerting consumers to the potential for negative effects on children's behavior and attention. The science wasn't without its complexities and uncertainties. Critics argued that the studies were often inconclusive, relying on observational data rather than controlled experiments. They pointed to the difficulty of isolating the effects of artificial dyes from other factors, such as sugar intake, parenting styles, and socioeconomic conditions. The debate, like the science itself, was nuanced and far from settled. Section 4. Big Food's Balancing Act. The food industry, faced with RFK Jr.'s unexpected but forceful challenge, found itself walking a tightrope. On one hand, there was the immediate need to respond to the public's growing concerns about artificial dyes, concerns amplified by the media frenzy surrounding the announcement. Ignoring the issue or dismissing it as unfounded wasn't an option. On the other hand, there was the daunting task of reformulating countless products that relied on these dyes for their visual appeal and brand identity. The cost of switching to natural alternatives, many of which were less stable and more expensive, was a significant concern for an industry driven by profit margins. The Consumer Brands Association, a powerful lobbying group representing the interests of the food industry, issued a measured but firm response. They maintained that the targeted dyes had been rigorously studied and deemed safe by regulatory bodies. They warned of potential unintended consequences, such as higher costs for consumers and a patchwork of confusing state-level regulations. Lost in the debate over safety and regulation was a more fundamental question. Would consumers accept a future where their favorite foods looked different? Would they embrace a Fruit Loops that got its color from beets and carrots instead of red num 40 and yellow num 5? The answer, like the future of food itself, remained uncertain. Section 1. The Making of an Activist, From Environment to Plate. To understand the driving force behind RFK Jr.'s crusade against artificial food dyes, one must delve into the rich tapestry of his life, a life marked by both privilege and tragedy, by a deep-seated commitment to environmental activism, and by a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, even when it meant courting controversy. Born into a family synonymous with American political royalty, RFK Jr. could have easily chosen a life of comfort and conformity, but the assassinations of his uncle, President John F. Kennedy, and his father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, cast a long shadow over his life, instilling in him a profound sense of justice and a determination to fight for the underdog. His early career as an environmental lawyer foreshadowed his later focus on food safety. He made a name for himself battling polluters, advocating for clean water initiatives, and challenging powerful corporations that prioritized profit over environmental responsibility. This passion for protecting the environment naturally extended to concerns about the food we consume. RFK Jr. saw a direct link between a healthy planet and a healthy population, arguing that industrial farming practices, pesticide use, and the proliferation of processed foods were not only harming the environment, but also undermining public health. In the annals of American politics, few pairings seemed as improbable as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald J. Trump. One, a scion of a liberal dynasty, a champion of environmental causes, and a vocal critic of corporate greed. The other, a brash businessman with a penchant for self-promotion, a disdain for environmental regulations, and a cozy relationship with big business. Yet, in a twist that surprised many, Trump during his presidency tapped RFK Jr. to lead a commission on vaccine safety, a move that raised eyebrows given Kennedy's controversial views on vaccines. While the commission never materialized, the brief alliance hinted at a shared skepticism of government institutions and a belief that powerful interests were often at odds with the well-being of ordinary citizens. This shared distrust of authority, coupled with RFK Jr.'s growing concern about the state of the American food system, set the stage for his appointment as Health and Human Services Secretary in the subsequent administration. The appointment was met with a mix of curiosity, cautious optimism, and outright skepticism. Could a Kennedy, even one with a history of bucking his own party, find common ground with an administration often seen as hostile to public health initiatives? Only time would tell.
Check, check, check one, check two, check, check.
Upon assuming his role as Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr. wasted no time in outlining his vision for a healthier America. He launched the Make America Healthy Again campaign, a play on Trump's famous slogan, but with a decidedly different focus. MAHA, as it became known, wasn't just about banning artificial food dyes. It represented a broader critique of the American food system, one that RFK Jr. believed had become too reliant on ultra-processed foods, laden with sugar, salt, and artificial ingredients, all while neglecting the nutritional value of whole, unprocessed foods. He called for sweeping changes to school lunch programs, advocating for fresh, locally sourced ingredients and a reduction in sugary drinks and processed snacks. He proposed banning soda from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, arguing that taxpayer dollars should not be subsidizing unhealthy food choices. His message resonated with a segment of the population disillusioned with the status quo, people who felt left behind by a system that seemed to prioritize corporate profits over public health. MAHA, with its promise of a return to a simpler, more wholesome way of eating, tapped into a deep-seated yearning for a healthier, more authentic food culture. While RFK Jr.'s campaign against artificial food dyes garnered significant attention, it was just one facet of his broader agenda to overhaul the American food system. He set his sights on a range of other additives and ingredients, sparking both praise and pushback from various quarters. He called for stricter regulations on pesticides, arguing that their widespread use in agriculture posed unacceptable risks to human health and the environment. He targeted per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, those forever chemicals found in food packaging, linking them to a range of health problems, including cancer and immune deficiency. His stance on raw milk, however, proved to be particularly divisive. RFK Jr. was a vocal proponent of raw, unpasteurized milk, touting its purported health benefits and challenging the long-held scientific consensus that pasteurization was essential for preventing foodborne illnesses. This stance put him at odds with many in the medical and scientific communities who pointed to decades of data demonstrating the effectiveness of pasteurization in reducing the incidence of diseases like Salmonella and E. coli. The raw milk debate became a microcosm of the larger debate surrounding RFK Jr.'s food safety agenda, a clash between deeply held convictions, evolving scientific understanding, and the role of government in regulating what we eat and drink.
Check, check one, check, check.
The announcement of RFK Jr.'s intention to phase out artificial food dyes sent shockwaves through corporate America, forcing food giants to confront a future where their brightly colored products might be deemed unfit for American pantries. The food industry launched a counteroffensive, arguing the science was inconclusive, compliance costs would be exorbitant, and consumers preferred their brightly colored snacks. Despite fierce pushback, RFK Jr. held firm on phasing out artificial food dyes but agreed to a phased implementation, giving companies time to reformulate products and adjust supply chains. As states like California led the charge in banning artificial food dyes, a complex regulatory landscape emerged, creating both opportunities and challenges for RFK Jr.'s vision. Beyond food dyes, RFK Jr. aimed to overhaul the American food system, targeting a range of additives and chemicals he believed posed hidden dangers to public health. RFK Jr. targeted PFAS, the forever chemicals found in food packaging, calling for a ban due to their links to serious health problems and their persistence in the environment. RFK Jr. scrutinized additives like BPA and TCE in decaffeinated coffee, raising concerns about their potential long-term effects on human health. RFK Jr.'s advocacy for raw milk highlighted the tension between tradition and scientific evidence, pitting his beliefs in its health benefits against established public health data supporting pasteurization. RFK Jr.'s campaign ignited a national debate, dividing opinions on government regulation, food safety, and personal freedom, with some seeing him as a hero and others as an overreaching crusader. Despite public support, RFK Jr. faced significant obstacles from powerful industry lobbying, a divided Congress, and the challenges of implementing and enforcing new regulations. RFK Jr. recognized that banning specific ingredients was just the beginning. Creating a healthy food system required education, addressing socioeconomic disparities, and a fundamental shift in societal values towards mindful and sustainable eating. The future of food, a fork in the road. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. S. crusade to reshape America's relationship with food has been a tumultuous journey, a whirlwind of bold pronouncements, fierce opposition, and glimmers of hope. Whether his efforts will ultimately succeed in creating a healthier and more sustainable food system remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, he has ignited a national conversation, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about what we eat and why. The debate over artificial food dyes, those seemingly innocuous additives that have become synonymous with the American palate, is just the tip of the iceberg. RFK Jr.'s broader agenda, encompassing everything from pesticide regulations and PFAS bans to raw milk advocacy and a rethinking of school lunch programs, strikes at the very heart of our industrialized food system, challenging deeply ingrained assumptions about convenience, affordability, and the role of government in protecting public health. The path forward is fraught with challenges, a complex interplay of scientific uncertainty, political maneuvering, corporate lobbying, and deeply held consumer beliefs. There are no easy answers, no quick fixes. Transforming a system as entrenched and as resistant to change as the American food system requires a sustained and multifaceted effort, one that encompasses not just policy changes but a fundamental shift in societal values and individual behaviors. The future of food is not preordained, it is a choice we make every day, with every bite we take, every dollar we spend, and every vote we cast. RFK Jr.'s legacy, regardless of whether he achieves all of his ambitious goals, may well be measured by his ability to awaken a nation to the power of food, both to harm and to heal, and to inspire a generation to demand a food system that nourishes not just our bodies, but also our communities and our planet.